Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. And in this series of episodes, we're continuing our examination of some of the key Polish political figures from the 20th century. And I'm delighted to have with me again in the studio our expert on all things Polish, 20th century and more besides, Adam Starzyński. Adam, thank you for joining us. Great to have you back. Can we look now at a figure, Stanisaw Kot?
Yes. A politician, even if it was an interest that developed with him quite late on in life. Initially, you could say that he was more of an academic. He became most famous probably for being the person who wrote the communique in which Poland demanded that the Red Cross be involved in investigating the Katyn massacre to find out who was behind this massacre on thousands of Polish POWs.
Which Stalin, because the Germans had something similar, Stalin then thought this was a Polish-German plot.
Yes, and the Russians used it to break off relations with the Polish government in exile. But if we go back to his early years, he was born in 1885 into a peasant family in Galicia, the province of what had been Poland before the partitions, but at that point was a part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was marked by this political struggle between its Polish inhabitants and Ukrainian inhabitants, both within the framework of the Austro-Hungarian political system. His father was a peasant, but a quite educated man, a patriot, and he passed on this patriotic fervor to his son, who from a very young age was very interested in studying, and in 1909 he received a PhD at the age of 24. He received a PhD for a work on the political theories of antiquity and how they shaped Poland's political system in the 16th and 17th century. This would be a field of expertise that he would maintain throughout his life. Antiquity and the history of ideas, or history of culture. He received a grant and moved to Paris to study for 2 years between 1912 and 1914. Then, of course, the First World War broke out, and he became involved in the Polish National Committee, the team that would later be responsible for negotiating at the Paris Peace Conference, closely linked to the camp of Roman Dmowski, the nationalist leader, even though Kot himself had been really a socialist during his university years, a supporter of the Polish Socialist Party of Józef Piłsudski. During the war, though, he rediscovered his peasant roots, you could say, and he became a supporter of the Polish People's Party, an agrarian party, an interest party for Poland's very large peasant class. After the war, he didn't really participate in politics during the 1920s. He focused on his academic career. In 1924, he was given a chair at the University of Kraków, the Jagiellonian University, that was created just for him. And there he's continued his research into the history of the Reformation in Poland, and the history of education in Poland. However, by the early 30s, he was becoming increasingly critical of the government. He initiated a few protests that gathered university professors against the Sanation government, which had been ruling Poland since the May coup of 1926, when Piłsudski took power. In the early 30s, their rule took on a little bit more of an authoritarian character, and there were some political trials. People kept in the Brześć fortress, where they were held for protesting against the government, especially the political group called the Centrolew, or center left. In 36, he became a member of the executive board of the Polish People's Party, and now took on a fully political role. He held that position up to 1939 and the outbreak of the Second World War, during which he took the same decision as many other political characters from his time. He escaped to Hungary, and through Hungary further west to France, where a Polish government in exile and a Polish army in exile were being created. Naturally, in 1940, the Germans invaded France, and he had to continue to, just as the rest of the government, to the United Kingdom. In 1941, then, initially he was a minister of interior in the government in exile. In 1941, Adolf Hitler attacked the Soviet Union, and it reversed the alliances that had been in existence up to then. The Soviet Union had naturally taken part in the attack on Poland in 1939 together with the Nazis, but after Operation Barbarossa, when the Soviet Union needed support from the Western Allies, they had to mend the relationship with Poland, and there was an agreement, the so-called Majski-Sikorski agreement, signed between the Poles and the Soviets. After this, Mr. Kot was sent to the Soviet Union to become Poland's ambassador in the USSR.
I'm just going to have to interrupt you there. The clock is against us. I've had to stop Adam almost in mid-sentence. But we will be back to continue the story on the next episode of Poland Daily History, and we look forward to seeing you again then. Thank you for watching.